Hey there, my name is Mirabelle Lemieux. Welcome to my fungus report on the black morel. I chose this mushroom because it has some deep ties to my childhood. This is a photo of my grandma, Johnny Lemieux, holding a handful of yellow morels. She is the one who taught me how to hunt these tasty little mushrooms growing up in Northern California. She was a chef and a restaurant owner in Point Reyes on Drake's Beach and taught me everything I knew about hunting morels and cooking them. We would spend hours playing seeker for these mushrooms, and I'll never forget finding my first one when I was 11. Every year we'd go hunting in April for my birthday when they came up, and it was like finding gold. So morels are the two major edible morel species are divided into two major clades, the yellow tan grades and the black morels. Both of the yellow and black morels have very similar key identifying characteristics apart from the color of their caps. The black morel is hollow from cap to stem and has a rounded to cone-shaped honeycombed cap with pits and ridges that are dark brown to black. Black morels come in a variety of shapes and sizes from medium to large. The cap is typically 2 to 8 centimeters wide by 2 to 8 centimeters high, and the stem is about 5 to 12 centimeters wide by 2 to 8 centimeters high. The cap is completely integrated with the stalk along its full length, meaning that the cap and stipe are not separate like normal mushrooms are. And the stack is without a sac or a cup at the base, which is important in identifying because there's a stinkhorn mushroom, which is a lookalike and can sometimes be confused for morels. There are also several false morels that are poisonous, and important to know the difference. They're pretty easy to identify the difference in the cap. False morels do not have the distinct honeycomb pattern, but an irregular, wrinkly, brain-like texture, and the cap is attached only at the apex of the stipe, meaning that it can hang freely on either side. Here's a couple more photos of what a false morel versus a true morel looks like. As you can see, this wrinkly, indistinct pattern. And on the upper right corner on this page here is a picture of an elven saddle, which is in the same group as morels, but is not an edible mushroom. So morels begin fruiting in early to late spring, April through May, when the trilliums are just beginning to bloom, and they fruit for about 2 to 3 weeks. Morel spawn grows quickly and produces a gray to brown felt-like mycelium that disappears into sclerotia, which is like the eggs that sprout into mushrooms. In the spring, sclerotium has two options for germination: to form a new mycelium or to form a fruiting body. Morels and most culinary truffles are members of the Ascomyces and named after the asci, which is where the sexual spores are formed, and in morels these are found on the surface of the pits in the head. Morels might also be capable of the highly unusual feat of haploid meiosis. Until recently, all attempts at cultivation for morels was unsuccessful. According to Paul Stamets, the most successful method of cultivation has been using sawdust spawn mixed into a burn site. So morels grow over a wide geographical range. Black morels are widely distributed throughout the temperate regions of the world, occurring in many habitats that are associated with disturbance, like logging, new construction, burn piles, or bark mulch. They are common in the spring in western conifer forests, especially following fires, when they often fruit in huge numbers, typically in the first year after burning. Their mycelia tend to be short-lived, so new patches must be found every year, which makes morel hunting especially challenging and competitive. In the Midwest and eastern US, morels appear to have a relationship with dead elm trees, old apple orchards, and some black cherry trees, whereas in the western US, they rarely seem to have a relationship with particular plants, but instead they appear most often in a variety of disturbed habitats. Morels can also be extremely hard to see as they blend in super well. Their dark coloring blends very well into the surrounding areas, especially if growing them on wood or bark. Here's a photo pulled, range map pulled from iNaturalist just to represent their wide geographical range. You can see they grow pretty much everywhere, a little less frequently within the interior US and the drier climates. So morels offer a promising potential for mycorrestoration and helping fire-damaged ecosystem recovers because of their tendency to grow in the wake of forest fires. After summer forest fires, habitats are left bare and biologically impaired. So these fast-growing mushrooms emerge where seemingly no life does. Morels are pioneers for biodiversity. As they mature, they release fragrances that attract insects and mammals to a barren landscape. Flies come and deposit their larvae in morels, which in turn attract birds and mammals who come to scavenge in the burnt habitat. And as they do, they are releasing seeds of plants eaten far away from the fire zone in their defecation. While they are coming to forage, these animals are replenishing the landscape with these seeds and the nutrients in their excrement. And in turn, each animal who encounters a morel is dusted with the spores that will continue on with them as they wander on through the forest. Morels are one of the few fleshy mushrooms to grow in a burned landscape, which makes them special in their role of leading habitat renewal. Morels that fruit abundantly in response to these disturbances present a challenge to define sustainable harvesting because these disturbances can be unplanned and episodic like a wildfire. Morels are prized as one of the most superb edible mushrooms. They're highly known as a delicacy in fine dining restaurants, which I find interesting that it's advised when cooking morels that they be cooked down very well in a ventilated room because they contain volatile toxic hydrazines, and breathing in these fumes can be deathly dangerous. Several morel festivals are held every spring in Michigan, where about 500,000 people head to the woods to hunt competitively for the black morel and a few weeks after for the yellow morel. Some of these festivals, like the Boyne City Mushroom Festival and the Messick Mushroom Festival, have occurred annually for nearly 50 years. According to my eldest sister, pictured here on the top right, who has followed in the chef footsteps of my grandmother by starting her own catering company, morels pair best with a steak and fine red wine, or cooked into a creamy, buttery white sauce that can be used to dress any kind of pasta or as a sauce for fish. Here's a photo as well of my mom hunting for morels, and a photo up close of what they look like cut up, prepared to go in a dish. Thank you for listening.